You've come a long way. As far as like, the 200 dates and everything, what dating app? Was it like Hinge, OkCupid, Coffee Meets Bagel? Like what was it?
All of them.
Hello, and welcome to Situaseans podcast. I'm your host, Sean Michael Williams, aka seanydoo. You can call me Sean, seanydoo. Does not matter to me. I'm just glad that y'all are here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm first and foremost, I'm just excited that we got past 20 episodes. So yeah, we're here. You know what? I got to cue the air horns for for that one. And I'm excited today because I have a very special guest here. Who is this guest? Well, I'm going to get into that in 1 second, but I just want to do some quick housekeeping. I want to say thank you all to the listeners for tuning in, sharing the podcast, sharing it with your friends, your families, your coworkers, mama, papa, anybody with, anybody that is going through something, because we all go through shit. So at the end of the day, it's send it to somebody. If you got that one neighbor that's just annoying the fuck out of you, that's just, just being just so unhinged, tell us about it. We'd love to hear it. Situationspodcast.com/submit. If you're going through dating, whatever, situationspodcast.com/submit. And if you want to get the exclusive bonus content, join the Patreon, patreon.com/situationspodcast. So, And so my guest today, I have a wonderful guest who's going to help me unpack everything on the show. So she is a dating and relationship author, a writer, and a longtime dater who went on over 200 dates. What? Looking for love. Through this journey, she became an accidental expert on dating apps and all things modern dating. Okay, go all the way to fuck off. She recently wrote a book about dating to give others advice and validations she wishes she had when she was single. So her new book, Looking for Something Serious, is now available to order on Amazon. Everyone give a very, 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 very warm welcome to my guest, Lauren Josephine.
Woo woo! Hello. Thank you so much for having me on, Sean. This is a great opportunity, and I love all things dating. I'm really excited to dive into this with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. And there's just so much that goes on in the dating environment. And I'm excited to unpack it. We're going to solve dating by the end of this episode.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have all the answers.
Yes. And so for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about relationships, mental and emotional life experiences, and dating, all things, that we go through in life. So again, share, and, submit your stories. Whenever you submit, it's a drop of love on my heart. And to those of you that have been tuning in for a while, the whole saying, submit, drip, 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 because it drips love onto my heart. So today we're going to be talking about, how to bring your most full and authentic self when you're going out on dates, or if you're seeing somebody, or even facing rejections, and, so much more. And then, we have a listener submission about showing equal effort and interest, when getting to know somebody. So, Lauren, I'm excited for you to unpack that with me as well. And then we got a couple of submissions about hinged or unhinged, dating app prompts that, screenshots that people have submitted. So we're going to be unpacking that as well. I kind of want to give our listeners a little bit of perspective about you. So tell us, what is your current situation? Are you dating? Are you single? Are you married? What's going on?
So I'm in a relationship, been in one for almost 2 years. As I mentioned, I had a super long dating journey, but the way that I ended up finding a relationship was actually on Reddit, which is so unexpected. After all the years of dating apps, I, never thought I'd still meet my partner online, but not through the app. So it was a pretty magical situation, super serendipitous. He happened to live near me, and I just said, why not? Let's go on a date. And it worked out.
Love that. So how long have you been together again?
Almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in March of next year. Yeah.
Go all the way the fuck off. We love to see that. We love to hear it. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's feels good to we actually live together, and so it was like it's crazy just looking back on my life 2 years ago, and I was single as fuck, and now I'm like living with my partner. Things just can change on a dime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm so excited to, to unpack things and, kind of learn a little bit more about you. And, again, I just want to say, congratulations on your latest book release. That is just amazing. Amazing. You wrote a book on dating and relationships. And so, I can only imagine how exciting that all of that is, especially like the release. I think I saw on Instagram you had like a release party and everything. Like, okay.
Yeah. I just had a book launch party last weekend. I obviously have never been to one or thrown one before, but it was so much fun.
Yes. it looked like fun. I was like, man, I wish I was there.
I know, right? I was like, I want to invite all my followers.
Yes. So yeah, even like with like your personal experiences going through dating and relationships like over the years and everything, and like even like the 200 dates, I kind of want to know, like what inspired you to like write this book, and then what was the process like? Because I've never written a book, so I don't know, so yeah, definitely share with the listeners what all that entails.
Totally. Yeah. So I've always generally loved writing about relationships and all of the complicated emotions that come along with them. I feel emotions very deeply and I always have. So I kind of found an outlet in writing of being able to like at least let me put these thoughts on paper. It kind of helps me process. And as we alluded to earlier, I had a super long dating journey. I started online dating when I was 22 and then spent like most of the next decade single and dating. And I had a lot of what I realized were pretty quintessential experiences that are shared between a lot of people in their 20s and 30s that are dating these days. Like having that one relationship where I thought I'd marry him and then he broke up with me and I thought my world was over. Getting into a 4-year situationship and just overall struggling with dating. So when I was 32, like 10 years into my dating journey, still single, I decided, hey, I want to write a book about all this because people need to be talking about the impacts of dating, like the emotional impacts of it. And I know other people struggle like I do. And at that time, I felt like no one was really talking about how dating apps are this like really difficult medium to meet a partner in. And we're all suffering through them, but yet it's like just a known thing. And, I had just learned so many hard lessons and I had so many stories. Like my brain was just bursting with stories to tell. And they were ridiculous and funny. And then other ones like really soulful. And I had a lot of lessons that I wanted to share with people. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put this all into a book. And yeah, is also the craziest part of the book journey is that the day before I met my partner was when I decided to write the book. I like called my sister and I was like, I'm going to write a book. And then the next day I met my partner. So it was like uncanny and crazy.
Wow, that's so amazing. And even like with the 200 days and everything. First and foremost, what really stood out too, you had mentioned a 4-year situationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it was after that like relationship where I thought I'd marry the guy and I got broken up with. And then I did that thing where I started a friends with benefits with one of my best friends. And we were like, we're fine. We can totally do this if we just communicated about it. And then he fell in love with me, but I wasn't ready. And then I fell in love with him, but he wasn't ready. And it was just like so much back and forth. And it really taught me a lot about like boundaries and what not to do with situationships. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. No, I mean, you've come a long way as far as like, the 200 dates and everything. Like, so was these like dates on like what dating apps? Was it like Hinge, OkCupid, Coffee Meets Bagel? Like what was it?
All of them, which is like, yeah. So like Bumble, Hinge, Tinder, The League, Coffee Meets Bagel. Facebook dating, okay, Cupid. I literally tried everything because I'm just one of those people that loves to plan and figure out my life. And of course, like love is the one thing you can't plan in your life, but I thought I would try, hence the 200 dates.
No, totally understandable. So like with like my listeners, like, so there's kind of like a running joke, especially between like the people that listen as well as like my friend group, because there's a Google Calendar that I use to like keep up with like the dates that I go on, because I'm a single person going, dating on the apps. And one day I was like, you know what, let me just do like an audit, because I want to know like how many dates I've went on since, I've first started downloading the dating apps. Because I got on the apps in like late 2018, because I was married for a couple years from 2016 to 2018. Long story short, she cheated on me before the wedding. Yeah.
Damn, that sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, only reason how I found out was because the guy that she cheated on me with had slid into her DMs on Instagram and kind of backed her into a corner. Was like, hey, if you don't keep meeting up, sending news, I'm gonna tell your guy what you're doing. So,
oh man, jeez.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Well, we have a long history. Maybe I can, learn to forgive and, forget. But, I just couldn't. Like the first year of marriage, I was like, it was just rough. I just couldn't trust her. Second year of marriage, I was like, okay, I'm going to need to ask for a divorce because I just can't do this.
That makes sense. Yeah, like starting a marriage with that as the foundations, like just does not sound good.
Yeah. Plus, I was so young. I was 24 when I got married. Yeah, and divorced by 26.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's young. Wow. I feel like most people, like, I don't understand how people get married in their 20s, to be honest with you. Like, I did not know myself in my 20s.
Yeah. If I had to do it all over again, I'd be like, because I'm 31 now. I'm like, oh my God, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have, like thought about marriage at this point in my life, but
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe about like, 7-8 months or whatever after the divorce, I finally got on the dating apps and I downloaded, like all of them, like Hinge, Coffee Meets Bagel, or Tinder, whatever. And but yeah, so from 2018 until like today, I was like, how many dates did I go on? And like on my Google Calendar, I would put like a rose next to each first date. So I won't count like like the second dates, or I would just count on how many first dates that I go on. It totaled out to be about 175.
Oh my God, you're like on my level. That's awesome. I love it.
So as soon as I saw the 200 days, I'm like, oh wow, okay. So like, I'm like, all right. I was like, wow, I've never seen that like that number before. I'm like, oh God, I'm getting close to that number too. Okay, we get it. Like, so
yeah.
So only about 25 more dates, and I'll be in a committed relationship like you.
There you go. 200 is the magic number.
Yeah. So, one of the things on your Instagram post that I really, really liked and that kind of stood out was these two different terminologies, like weak versus strong boundaries. And when I read that on your post, I was like, wow, oh my God, like that makes so much fucking sense. And I never really thought about it like that. So, for the people listening and for the people watching, I like those descriptor boundary types. Can you kind of like elaborate on like the difference between like the two and kind of like, provide like a little bit of a context to kind of get us all like up to speed?
Yeah, absolutely. I am such a proponent of boundaries in general. I feel like what I learned on my own dating journey is that having strong boundaries is what protects you from getting hurt, from getting burnt out, all of those things. And in terms of defining what a strong boundary is, I think strong boundaries are rooted in you knowing what your own values and what your limits are, and understanding that you are the one that is responsible for upholding these. And it's being willing to communicate or take action in accordance with your values and not just going along with what someone else is doing because you think they're really attractive or you want to make them happy. So some examples, I have a lot of examples, but I'll start with one. A really common scenario in dating that I encountered and that I hear all the time is when someone is being inconsistent or sending mixed messages. So a weak boundary around this type of behavior would be pushing away your discomfort and confusion about it and not saying anything and just continuing to date them and hoping that they're going to change and live for the high of when they show you the attention and then white knuckle it through the low and the bad times when they're distant or flaky or absent, whatever it is. Versus a strong boundary would be recognizing that their behavior doesn't work for you, communicating it to them, and then also the most important part is having a bottom line for yourself when you know that you'll be done. So maybe you ask their intentions about what they're looking for. Maybe you even let them know that their behavior is confusing and tell them that it doesn't work for you. And then you wait, you observe if they change their behavior. And if not, maybe you give yourself a month, and if they don't change, then you end it, because you know that inconsistency doesn't match up with what you want in a partner. Does that make sense, that example?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's so important to have like these boundaries, because it's like, if you don't have boundaries, you're allowing people to continue to treat you however like they are, I guess, choosing to treat you. And it's like, putting up like that wall of saying like, hey, this is how I feel, like you're coming off to me this way, you're treating me this way. I just want you to know that I don't appreciate that. So how can we find middle ground where it's like, okay, because it's important to have like that self-awareness. And I think that's that's where those boundaries start. It's just self-awareness and self-advocacy, because a lot of us don't don't have that, or we don't realize that. And, we tend to kind of fall into like these, what do you call it? Like, I forget the terminology. It's like negative feedback loops or negative feedback pattern. Yeah. So it's so important to establish those boundaries. So I really like that.
Yeah. And I think it's hard, because a lot of us, I mean, I had really good parents, but they still didn't teach me how to have good boundaries in dating, right? Like, it's kind of one of those things that you learn by failing, by making mistakes, by getting hurt. And then you come back and you say, okay, what went wrong? How do I prevent it from happening again? And I think that's how I learned about strong boundaries and why I'm such a strong proponent now. And one other thing I want to say about boundaries that I think is almost missed sometimes is that the key to strong boundaries is taking actions. It's not just your words. So if you get fed up with something and you say, I've had enough, I'm not dealing with this anymore, you have to actually follow through with action and stick with it. Otherwise, it's empty words and actually a weak boundary. So if you kind of tell someone, hey, I don't like this, but then you continue to stick around and let it happen, then that's you having a weak boundary.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, honestly, go all the way to fuck off with that one. Yeah. Speaking of go all the way to fuck off, get your go all the way to fuck off t-shirt. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it drop right here. Gotta go to Plug City, Yeah, but I wholeheartedly agree. It's so important to like have those boundaries. And I think when I first started getting on like the dating apps and kind of just navigating that, I was like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, because I was in a relationship for 6-7 years prior to that. So just coming out after like a marriage, I'm like, damn, last time I went on like a quote unquote date was like, I was like, what, like 19 or some shit like that. So,
oh, jeez.
Early 20, so it was just like, I had to kind of like figure out, okay, what are my boundaries, and even going out on dates and stuff like that, trying to figure out what it is that I like in a person, because I don't really have a type. I go for character. Is not like, I don't go for specific like ethnicities or, religions, beliefs, whatever. I'm all about character, because, you could be like a devout Christian and still be like an asshole. So it's just like,
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I like that you go for character. I think that is like so good to hear.
Yeah. And so, I kind of had to just learn okay, like, what is it that I really care about, especially like the values within like myself and what I want to see in other people. And it's just like, I've done so much work on myself because I come from a childhood of trauma. So my stepdad abused, physically, mentally, verbally abused me and my siblings growing up. And so, I never really had a voice growing up. And so it wasn't until like I left home at 17, because we were like literally fighting, like throwing hands and everything. And I was like, okay, I need to get out of this situation, because I don't want to do something where it's like, I end up in jail because like I just murdered this man. So let me, remove myself and, start to put the work in on myself and deal with the traumas that I've gone through. So Yeah. So so like throughout like my early 20s, I was like, okay, I want to be the best person that I can be and present myself in a positive light, because it doesn't matter where you come from. It's about what you do with your life and how you affect others around you. So yeah. And we're all pieces of work. We're all like the work is never done. It's all about continuing to put in that effort, because I never want to project onto somebody else like my past, or project what it is I'm going through, whatever, because I know what it's like to be projected onto. And even in my last relationship, that was from 2020 to like 2021, like a short, relationship, whatever. She did not process the traumas that she went through, because she also comes from trauma as well. But I had theater, musical. I do musical theater on the side outside of like the day job. So I had all these positive outlets to kind of, kind of take my mind off of like the negativity that was going on outside of it, where she didn't have that growing up. And so, we were just like two different people at two different places in their mental and emotional like journeys, trying to coexist. And it just was like constant, like, butting of heads. But yeah, so so to kind of just circling back to what you were saying, yeah, it's so important to have boundaries, because yeah, if you don't have them, then yeah, you're opening yourself up to a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And hurt people hurt people.
Totally. And it's so honestly great to hear like what you're saying about working through your past and, not projecting your past onto people. It's so impressive when I hear about people like you who have had a bad past, but you are aware of it and you say, you know what, I don't want to take this into my future dating life. Like you're breaking that cycle. And I hope there are more people doing the work like you, because that is really awesome to hear.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that greatly. Yeah. And so like, as far as like, especially bringing it back to like dating, like what are like some common like misconceptions that, people have about dating that you may have seen, or that you may have picked up on, or even things that you've experienced in your life?
Yeah, man, I have a lot of these, but I'm going to start with one that is near and dear to my heart and actually relevant to you too, because you've also gone on a lot of dates. So I actually don't agree that dating is a numbers game. I don't think, after going on a lot of dates, I don't think that going on a million dates is necessarily the solution, because there is a non-zero cost emotionally to going on date after date after date and having things not work out. Like it can mess with your psyche. And I think the fact that the apps give us access to so many people is actually problematic, because it makes everyone seem disposable, and you tend to forget, just like human nature, you tend to forget that there are real people behind the screen when you're swiping. And this whole idea of the paradox of choice is super real. There are actually studies on it. There's one that I remember reading about called the jam experiment. And so in this experiment, people were presented with either 6 choices of jam or 24 to 30 choices of jam to choose from. And the people that only had 6 choices, first of all, were more likely to make a choice, meaning buy a jam. And second of all, they reported higher satisfaction with their choice. And obviously, choosing jam is different than choosing a person to date, but I really think it's relevant to modern dating, because the human brain just isn't good at making choices when we're presented with this gigantic selection. I think it sort of short circuits our brain and creates like all these really frustrating emotions, which is what you're seeing with dating today. So long story short, I think the takeaway here is that people should really focus on the quality of their dates rather than the quantity. If I could go back, I would probably go on way less dates and do a better job of filtering up friends.
Yeah. I feel you there totally. I'm guilty of this as well. Like, like just being like, you know what? Well, I'm not really finding anything here. I'm gonna just go back to the app and just see what's out there. Like,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it happens to all of us. It's just like human nature.
yeah. And what I've seen too, especially going on dates on my end, is like I've, encountered people that is like, oh, well, this guy chews like with his like mouth open. Like not me. I do chew with like my mouth closed, but I'm just saying, like, I've heard like, people like say that. I think one thing that was probably quote unquote red flag on my end was because like on the, I was like, I want to test this out. So, how I was just sharing about how, I'm a divorcee, but I was like, I know enough, especially going on dates, that I'm not gonna like tell somebody on like the first date, just give them all this information like on like the first date. That's just like the first date is kind of like the vetting session, just to see, is there a mutual connection? Do we like each other? Is there some kind of common interest? Okay, now the second day. Okay, now we get a little bit deeper. Third day. Okay, now we're trying to see if if this is gonna work out. But I was like, you know what? Because I'm like about 70 something dates in, I want to try this. I want to tell somebody, I want to share, if somebody asks about like my past relationships, whatever, on the first date, sure, I'm gonna tell them about my divorce, and I want to see how they react to that, and I want to see if it leads to a second date. And I tried this, and like with maybe like two or three dates, just to see what the result was. And two of those three dates was like, one of the dates was like, oh, I have no problem with it. But then like after, like, I think like a day or two after, like, I'm trying to follow up, hey, do you want to hang out again? Hey, I did some thinking, and actually I can't see myself being with somebody who was divorced. I'm sorry. And it's just not going to work. I was like, hey, no worries. Like, wish you all the best. Second person on the date, she was just like, I told her like, yeah, I'm divorced, whatever. She was like, yeah, I really can't see myself with somebody that's on a date. So at least she told me like right then and there on a date.
Wow.
And then the third person, she was absolutely okay with it, but so we went on maybe like 5 or 6 dates after that, but it kind of just like slowly like faded away, since we kind of just wanted different things in life. But yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. Maybe like it's just because I'm older now, like in my 30s, but I don't have any problem with divorce. Like most of the time, honestly, this might be a hot take, but I see it as a green flag. As long as you're like far enough away from your divorce and dating again, but it means that the person is willing to commit,
Right.
like they've probably done personal growth work after. They probably have learned a lot. They know exactly what they don't want and what they want. So I don't know. I'm surprised that people had that take. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's definitely I do agree, like dating, especially on the era of the apps, it feels like a numbers game. It's just like, yeah, if someone finds like one little teeny tiny quality of somebody else, they're like, well, I got more people in my queue that I can match with, so I'm gonna just head back there.
Totally. And yeah, this actually segues into this other misconception I wanted to talk about, which is this whole idea of chemistry and the spark. So
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I feel like we've all been victims of this Hollywood meet cute trope where people lock eyes from across the room and they're immediately obsessed with each other and they burn down their lives to be with each other. But that's not real life. And I think going into dating, expecting and wanting to meet someone who you feel like crazy chemistry with is just not realistic. And I don't think that, I don't think it will be good for you. And it'll kind of force you to go into first dates, and it'll cause you to miss people who might actually be good for you. I'll say that I did experience like crazy chemistry a few times, and it was fun, but it never led to a lasting relationship. And I think that a lot of time that sparky chemistry feeling is actually anxiety, because you're on the edge of your seat. You're not sure if they like you or not, but you want them to like you, and you think that they're really hot. So you feel like maybe they're out of your reach, which pulls you in more. But I think after all of those dates and those experiences, that people would do much better to look for ease and warmth on a date rather than a spark. So you might not be obsessed with someone on date one, but if you enjoy their presence and you just say, hey, would I like to spend more time with this person? Just go on another date. Like when I met my partner, our first date it was nice, but it wasn't like I didn't leave being like, oh my God, that was my husband. It was just, it was nice. It was warm. He was interested. It was easy. And so I said, okay, like I'll go on another date. And I'm so glad I did, because after like 3 or 4 dates was when the chemistry started to build.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely, and that's so cool, like hearing it from your experience that, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe like the first date wasn't like all like the fireworks, whatever, that, media teaches us to to follow after. Oh, if there's no sparks on the first date, he's not meant for you or she's not meant for you. It's like no. It's like like that's just like that's just the very first like in-person contact. Like you have to build that connection. No one just like goes like the first date and is like, okay, we're getting married tomorrow. Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if someone wants to operate like that, then then for sure, live in Vegas and then do like that 24-hour, like wedding thing. But
yeah.
but for most of us, yeah, that does take time, and again, it's so cool hearing that from you, like someone who's been through all of this, that has a book that talks about this, because I can't tell you how many dates that I've gone on, whereas like after like the date, maybe about like 30 or 40% of the people that I've gone on dates with, it was like, oh, there was no spark on this first date, so I don't think like they'll tell me, I didn't feel a spark, so I wish you all the best. I'm like, all right. And like, I think maybe only one or two times out of those dates I've been like, hey, well, let's, try it again. Like, let's go on another date just to see, yeah, maybe there could be something out of like that first date. Because of course, there's a lot of nerves in the first date because you know nothing about this person, and then unfortunately on the woman's end, it's like, will I make it home tonight? You know what I mean? So it's just like,
yeah.
so
yeah.
So yeah, it's just like it has to build. But anyway, of those two times that I tried to see if there's like, something more could come from that. Yeah, one of those times it actually did lead to about, a good like 7-8 dates after we had a good time. And then the other one was just like, okay, yeah, there wasn't really a spark here. So at least we tried to see if something could have come from that. But of course, it didn't lead to anything. So it's good to to at least be able to explore that. But yeah, nowadays if someone is not feeling it after like a first date, I won't even like bother to like try to like let's give it one more shot. I'm like, ah.
I know. It's so hard to decide. Like sometimes you just know. You're like, all right, that first date was not good. I don't want to see them again. But I feel like it's those gray area ones where you're not really sure. Like that's where I usually just say it can't hurt to go on another date. Like spend another hour with them. Worst comes to worst, you wasted an hour or you spent an hour having a conversation. It's not a big deal.
Exactly. So like to the listeners, if y'all are listening and watching, if it's a gray area date, I like that term, gray area date. If it's a gray area give it another chance. You never know what could come from that. Like that person could be your person. So just explore it, see what comes from that. So kind of even going on a date, like again, talking about nerves and like, okay, building up to it. Okay. Like I'm excited to see this person. We've been talking on the apps for a bit and now we're about to, get on this date. How can somebody, build confidence in the dating scene, especially when there's just, the era of everybody has options, there's just so much going on. Nerves are everywhere. People are indecisive about what they want, or people are on these dating apps, still going through their, their, I guess, emotional and traumas from the past, but still somehow finding themselves on a dating app. So it's like, girl or boy, you ain't ready to be dating. Stay off the app. But anyway, how can somebody build confidence in the dating scene?
Yeah. So I think just the first thing to zoom out and think about is that 99% of the people that you meet probably aren't going to be a match for you, and vice versa. And again, because we have access to so many people, like you end up meeting a lot of people. So you can, when people reject you or things don't work out, you might blame yourself, but it's like just statistics that, you're not going to be a match with everyone, and it's no one's fault. It's just human nature. So I think like from the beginning, if we can go into dating thinking, hey, I'm just going to meet a person, I'm going to see if we vibe, versus going in looking for a husband or wife, that like is just a baseline, makes it easier to have patience and to have confidence. So I think that's number one. And then I think the second foundational thing is getting really clear about what you stand for and what you're looking for values wise. Because when you're really clear about your wants and needs, it's easier to date more objectively and not go into every day hoping that they're going to like you. But instead, it kind of puts you in more of an observer role. And then you get to decide if they're compatible with you. You get to decide if you like them. So putting yourself in this role of the chooser rather than waiting to be chosen is so key. And I found this out the hard way when I was dating, because in my early years, I would always try to date these hot guys that I felt like were really out of my league. And then I would desperately hope that they would choose me. But most of the time, looking back, we weren't even compatible. And I probably didn't even like them that much. I just thought they were attractive and I wanted them to want me. But that's such a powerless place to date from, versus being the chooser is much more empowering.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. You see, I knew you would be such a great guest, like just solving all of the dating problems.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just such an overthinker, and so like all of these things I developed like to help my own brain, and now I'm like, wow, I have a catalog of things I can help other anxious people with.
Yes, yes. And even, with all of the things that we kind of go through or even like kind of experience before going on a date, kind of taking it back to people that are on the apps that probably shouldn't be on the apps. Like my biggest question is, I always want to wonder why people find themselves on the app if they're still, in the state of hurt and pain and or trauma. Because I've encountered a couple people like that, and it's just like, a couple of people I was like, okay, you know what, maybe I'll try to give it a couple of dates, and then like, there's been times I'm like, okay, you know what, this is a little bit too much for me, and like I feel like this is gonna like kind of like bring me in like a very negative headspace if like I'm like around this person, because like they're just always projecting or always pessimistic, and it's just like, okay, why are they still in the date? Maybe they don't know that they need to do the work on themselves, but I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, I definitely have a lot of thoughts about this. I think that a lot of people go on the apps like not even ready for a relationship. They just are lonely and they want the validation, they want the company. And I think that's why, in my opinion, it's really important to ask someone like pretty early on when their last relationship was, because I think this is controversial, but I think it's a red flag to date someone that's newly single, especially if it
Yes.
was a long relationship. And especially if they're the type of person that is never single, like they're always jumping to new relationships. I think they have a high propensity to hurt you because they're kind of like always going on to the next thing. They're not really dealing with their emotions. They're just on the apps, like collecting their matches, maybe having fun on dates, maybe hooking up, who knows. But I think it's just the apps, like, unfortunately let anyone go on regardless of their intentions. So you just like run into a lot of these people that are not emotionally available. They're distant. They're newly single, should not be on the apps. But that's kind of where that like upfront filtering comes in. And it's one of those skills. It's hard. It takes time to develop, but it really helps you to kind of not get yourself in those situations.
For sure. And actually, I had a guest yesterday that we were recording an episode, and she had said, like before like they should change it on the dating apps. Before you get on the app, you have to like speak with like a licensed like therapist before you. I was like, yes, yes.
Yes. Oh my God, I've never wanted anything more.
Oh my goodness. So like I like because just think of like the quality of matches that would kind like that would happen if people were to be vetted before they hop on like these apps. Because again, kind of just going back to what you and I were both saying, a lot of people, they don't realize that they're doing that, or they're just coming out of it because they're lonely, or whatever these factors are. And it's just like, unfortunately, because they're choosing to hop on a app when they're not even ready, or they may not even know that they're not that they're not ready. It's almost kind of causing a domino effect, and kind of like what do you call it? It's almost like other people on the apps that are looking for something serious, it's at their expense.
Totally. Yeah. And it's so hard because you can't prevent people like that from going on there. So you have to
Yeah.
be the one to protect yourself, but it's exhausting sometimes. And also I think the hardest people to deal with are the ones that don't even know themselves well enough to know what they're doing. So like they might believe themselves, like they might truly think they're telling the truth when they tell you they want a relationship, they're ready, they're emotionally available, but deep down they're not, because they just don't even know themselves. And those are the people that are the hardest to discern, because from the outside they might be saying all the right things, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And even like people on the apps, like I kind of want to know from your perspective as well, as kind of like from your experiences too, like what role do online dating apps play, especially like in modern like relationships?
Yeah, man, I think the apps are unfortunately or fortunately here to stay. I think that, kind of what we were touching on earlier, like almost everyone dating today is using the apps. Hopefully they're not using the apps when they're still in a relationship, but it still kind of puts that kind of puts that paradox of choice in there, where it's like, even if you're dating someone, you might kind of think like, oh, what else is still out there? So I think that's definitely hard. And I think overall, just like, at least from my experience, and it sounds like maybe yours too, like the apps are just difficult for our mental and emotional health. And I think we all like tend to have kind of toxic relationships with the apps themselves, like deleting and re-downloading and hating and maybe loving for a brief moment. I don't know.
I
Um,
feel so called out, but it's so
yeah,
true.
no, I get it. I get it. I recently made a like a spoof Spotify Wrapped, but for dating Wrapped, and like kind of had this sentiment on there, and it like kind of went viral. And I was like, wow, people really agree with this whole thing of like deleting the apps and re-downloading them. So yeah, I mean, overall, like as much as the apps like made me want to die, I think that they're really just a tool for meeting people, but they do come with side effects. So I think that like I don't think they should be thrown out. I think they can be used, but they should be used with intention and awareness. Um, I think like what's most important for each individual person is to find a way to use the apps that works for you. So maybe that means limiting your time on them, or taking a break when you feel really burnt out, or not swiping when you feel depressed or desperate. That was a big one for me. The more desperate I felt, the more I would swipe, and never had good results. And it might even mean deleting the apps if you feel like they're not for you. That is also a totally okay approach. Believe it or not, you don't need the apps to meet someone. And I'm actually proof of that, because after years and years on the apps, going on hundreds of dates, my intuition, I'd been ignoring it for a long time, but it had been telling me forever that the apps were just not my way of meeting my person. So in December 2021, after I had this really frustrating love bombing experience, and it was like the third time this type of thing had happened to me, I got so upset and I like flipped the table over, and I was like, you know what? I am done. I'm actually done with the apps. Like I felt this like finality, this shift inside of me. And so I deleted them. I actually also stopped drinking at the same time, because I was like, these two things are poisoning my mental health. And then 3 months later, I met my partner. So it's like I didn't need the apps. Like following my intuition, I think actually is the thing that led me to my partner. So long story short, I think like however you want to use the apps is fine, as long as you're doing it in a way that's right for you, and not listening to like the pressure of like, oh God, I have to be on like 7 apps or I'm never going to meet my person, because that's how I felt. And it wasn't true.
Yeah. And again, it's so powerful just hearing that from someone who's gone through it, because, kind of taking it back again, whenever like we hear dating or relationship advice, I think one of the things that kind of gets people a little bit annoyed is whenever married people give single people like dating advice. It's like, come on, it's like you've been married for like 10, 15 years. How are you gonna give me like dating advice about the apps? Like the apps barely was around when you were dating, whatever. So like no, like I definitely agree with everything like that you said, because like it it is an oversaturated market, and people do it's like you remember like the times when it was like, okay, early on when dating apps were first starting to really kind of like pop off, I want to say like early 2010s or whatever. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, you met this person on Tinder, you met this person on like on a dating app. Whoa, are you crazy? Now it's like like if you did not meet them on the app, what, you met them at a bar? Oh, how
I
trifling.
know. It's so true.
So yeah. And I think we've hit that point in dating where it's like we've come full circle because the apps are so oversaturated, because now we have a new generation on the apps. We have Gen Z now, like on the apps. So it's like, now there just more people, more users. And now it's kind of like a lot of people are kind of getting frustrated, like, okay, well, this person isn't serious, or this person wants this, or this person, like, so now it's like more people are starting to like go back to those in-person connections, or meet through friends, or meet like at an event, or what have you. So it's come full circle. So
It really has. Yeah, I love the resurgence of like in-person things. Like I just see a lot of people setting up these like mixer type of events, and I'm a huge fan. I love that we're going back.
yeah. And even just seeing like you said, like those mixers, and then what is it? I think there's like another app that has like it's like traveling, or like or adventures for like single people. It's like a website. I can't remember like what the fuck the name of it was. But anyway, I'm just like, wow, okay. I get to go across the world and like with a bunch of group of single people. Like I might need to look into this next.
Seriously, if you do it, let me know how it goes, because I like really wanted to try that when I was single. I think there's one called Events and Adventures, and then there's like some other kind of summer campy ones, and all of them I was like, this sounds like a dream.
Right. Yes. So if I ever do take on one of those experiences, I'm definitely have to report back to you and let you know.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, are there like specific like communication tips, especially if, for like navigating, like difficult situations, especially like in dating? Because I know it's always hard. Like nobody wants to be the bad guy. Nobody wants to like I guess kind of be the first to like, okay, we got to get down to business. What are you looking for? How does one navigate into that territory without like, I don't know, just like coming off as hostile?
Yeah, totally. So I'm a huge fan of transparency and communication. Like I might even be an over communicator, but it's kind of what I learned through dating is that if you don't ask the question, you're not going to know. And I feel like I spent so many years like kind of sitting back and like playing it cool and be like, don't ask them, like don't do that. And it never got me anywhere. It got me a lot of rumination, a lot of overanalyzing. And then when I finally got so fed up and asked the question, I got my answer. And sometimes it wasn't what I wanted to hear, but I think it was still like I would rather know the truth than wait around and see. And so I think a really good way to communicate early in dating is asking non-confrontational, open-ended questions. So, for example, maybe someone that you're dating has recently gotten kind of distant and their texting fell off. Instead of sitting there ruminating about why, I think it's better to just ask them, like say something like, "Hey, I noticed you've been quieter lately. Is everything okay?" Something like that, where it's just like, you're not accusing them. You're just using a statement like an observation, like, I noticed this, followed by a question. And I think that kind of gives people a chance to reveal themselves and like share their truth, because you're not creating a hostile environment. You're just saying, I noticed this. Like, can we talk about it?
Yeah, that's so true. Because communication is so important and is so key, because at the end of the day, it's all about a proactive response and a proactive approach than a reactive response and reactive approach. Because yeah, like to your point, if someone's out here, let's say someone is, I don't know, they're just like being very quiet, or just like not really showing passion or showing commitment or whatever, like their behaviors just change at some point during a relationship. Yeah, if you come at that person like, hey, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you acting like this? Like, just out of the blue. It's like, yeah, of course they're gonna be well, like, hey, well, I feel like this way, X, Y, Z. But if you're like, yeah. But yeah, rather than coming in like, hey, I noticed, you're feeling this way. You want to talk about it? Like, where are we? So, I think that's another thing too, like talking about the where are we stage, like
Oh yeah, this is a tough one. uh, yeah, I feel like in my early years, I was so hesitant to like ever ask anything like that. But like the more kind of mature I got, I think I realized that if something felt off or if I was confused, like I was probably detecting something that was real. And so I think like not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily ask like, what are we? But I would kind of just say like, hey, I just wanted to check in. How are you feeling about things? Like, what do you think that your intentions are? Like, what are you looking for? I think again, just like open-ended questions, just like gives people the space to be honest. And if maybe they've been feeling some doubt or they're not really looking what you're looking for, it gives them the chance to tell you, like it opens up the dialogue.
for sure. And even like in my current like situation, like so even though like I'm single on the apps, like I think what makes it like a little bit difficult for me is like I'm like moving like at the end of, so right now I live in Chicago, but I'm moving to Los Angeles in next summer of 2024 or whatever. So it
Nice.
gets so complicated. Like, okay, so, I have no, like, so even like on the dates, I'll tell people like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is my situation, like, you know, do with that information with what you will. But it's always tricky because it's like, of course, I do want to establish that connection. I do want a relationship, but it's like, well, I'm moving and I can't just ask somebody to like, up in their life or whatever, So,
Yeah, that's tough.
yeah. One thing like what do you think? What are your thoughts? How should I approach this? Me getting free advice now.
No, I think it's a great question. And I feel like just first of all, like I think it's cool that you're still dating because maybe I'm just a hopeless romantic, but I feel like if you meet the right person, that like distance can be figured out, like if you meet the love of your life in Chicago and like they're not tethered there for whatever work or family or something, like you never know. You never know what can happen. So I think the best approach is just being transparent about it, being like, I'm still dating, but I am moving in a year. So I want to let you know, like, no decisions need to be made right now. But just so you know, like, I am looking for a long term relationship, but like, there is this thing that is happening. So please be aware.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Like that's such good advice. And then, to anybody out there that is going through something similar, like, there are ways to communicate, and communication is key.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess like like kind of like one of the other questions that I would like really wanted to know, and this is something that everybody that is talking about, like on like whether it's TikTok, Instagram, like everyone is just like flooding in with this one. But so everyone that's ever been on a date or that has ever seen someone or had a situationship or what have you, we've all been ghosted in some way, shape, or form. My biggest question is, why is it that like, some people ghost, and then on top of that, why as we as individuals, like sometimes the ghostee of the ghoster, why do we take it personally?
Oh, yeah, such a juicy topic. And yes, like to your point, I was ghosted many times. It never doesn't hurt. It sucks. It's a sucky experience. But I think what I learned over time is that if someone ghosts, it usually means that they're uncomfortable with confrontation or otherwise just emotionally immature. It means that they don't have the skills or the character to do the hard thing and end it with you. So they take the cowardly way out and just disappear. And I think that ghosting is 100% reflective of the ghoster, not of the ghostee. But I know, like, from personal experience, it is so hard to not take it personally. And I think when you think about it, it really makes sense. And that, like, being ghosted is such a jarring experience because someone was there and then they're just gone. And like, you're just left with no reason. And I think it really brings up any insecurities that you have, any abandonment wounds, or any other childhood issues right to the surface. And I think it's a really human thing to look for reasons why. And since we'll never know the reason from the ghoster side, we tend to make it mean that something is wrong with us because it gives us a sense of control, right? So it's like, if you're like, oh, they ghosted me because I'm ugly or whatever, like, at least you know why, and at least you feel like you can take action about the situation. And I have this theory that when someone ghosts you, you'll usually land on a specific reason why. And that reason is actually your biggest insecurity. It's almost certainly not the reason why they ghosted you, but you'll default to whatever it is about yourself that you're the most insecure about because it makes the most sense to you. So for me, I had a lot of body image issues in dating. So I'd make ghosting mean, oh, I'm not attractive enough, I'm too manly, like whatever it was, like that would always be the reason. And I'm sure that it was not the real reason, but it's just like
Right.
always what I would land on because I was so insecure, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, like, and it's so cool, like hearing it from like your perspective as well, because like I've definitely been ghosted, a good number of times as well. And like in the beginning, when that first started happening, again, like me never being on the dating apps ever, just like just jumping, I'm like, oh, this person's not responding. Like we had a good conversation. Like what the hell?
Yeah.
Or even like if someone like that I've gone on like a few dates with, and out of nowhere, just like no response, I'm like, like what. But yeah, it makes so much sense that some people, they like, yeah, like there's people that are afraid to kind of address that, or afraid of like conflict or whatever. Some people that they just don't know how to have those tough conversations or say, hey, I'm not really feeling this. So yeah, they take the easier route because it's less, I guess, quote unquote, fall back on them when it's just like they're out of the picture and don't have to like, interact with your response. But yeah, so
yeah, exactly.
It's important to have those conversations. And I think, like not to like, like toot horns or anything like that, but I probably, I know I've only ghosted maybe like one or two times, which is like, still one or two times too much for like, for me. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say, like, rejecting people is hard. It's uncomfortable. Like I've probably ghosted maybe once, I can't remember. But yeah, like it's a skill again that you have to learn. And it's like, it is no fun disappointing people. Like I like understand why people ghost. I don't agree with it, but I do get it because rejection on both sides is uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know like on my end, the couple of times that I've ghosted, it was just like, I just didn't have the heart to tell them like, I'm not, really feeling like this, whatever it is that like that we're doing, or it was just like, well, this person has like a very like shitty attitude, and I'm just not even about to deal with the fallout. So.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is you bring up a good point that like the only situation where I think ghosting is okay is if you like feel in danger of like how they might respond. And this might apply more to women. And it actually has happened to me before where like I could tell that this person was not going to take rejection well, or they actively didn't take it well. Like they were like barraging me with texts afterwards. At which point I think it's okay. Block, delete. Like that's completely fine. Like that, but that's the only situation that I think it's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely stay safe out there, everyone, especially you ladies. Like, yeah, definitely stay safe and, keep in contact with your friends and family, especially if you're going to go break up with somebody who, has, kind of toxic or kind of ill behaviors. So yeah, absolutely. And I guess, kind of like coming from that, like another question that I really would like wanted to know is like the compatibility, like the opposite, like I guess, and how, whether someone's like the same or different, but how opposite attracts, we all have so many different dynamics, but, like how important is that compatibility when it comes to long-term relationships and building those foundations?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that compatibility is the most important thing, like of everything, because I think, attraction is important. Obviously, you should be attracted to your partner. Chemistry is fun, but those don't really matter if you're not compatible. Like, imagine waking up in 10 years with someone that you don't even like being around, or someone who doesn't want the same things as you in life, or someone that has conflicting values with you. Like, that would be so miserable. And so I think that, dating should really be thought of as a process of figuring out who's the most compatible with you so that you can find a relationship that will stand the test of time. And I think that a big mistake that people make, and I've made myself in dating, is rushing into things without really taking the long-term compatibility into account. Because unfortunately, those things that you overlook at the beginning will just become the reasons that you struggle later, and you'll wish you would have paid more attention to at the beginning. And I get that being single and dating is exhausting, but if you want a long-term relationship, I think it's so key to be really discerning about compatibility at the start. And if that means saying no to most people, that's okay. Like, that is normal. You probably should be saying no to most people because, again, 99% of people aren't for you. I think it's better to wait for someone who's truly a compatible match rather than getting 1 or 2 years in, realizing you overlooked big issues and then breaking up and then starting all over again,
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's so important. Like you said, yeah, I do agree. It's so important to have that compatibility because if you don't have that, then what do you have? Like, what are you building with? Like, how are you making this work? Because at the end
Yeah,
of the day,
exactly.
someone's going to still short it. Yeah. Have
Mm-hmm.
you ever seen like those what is like those Netflix like reality shows like Love Island or Too Hot to Handle? Like,
Yes, I like one of my secret pleasures is like trashy dating shows. So I've seen most of those.
yes. So you know how like whenever they give like the contestants a challenge, they are sent off to like this one part of the island, like they're talking with like a dating coach or talking with like a relationship expert. I can totally imagine you on that show giving advice to the contestants. Like, Netflix, if you're watching, bring Lauren onto your show.
Sean, did you just predict my next career move? Because I am into that.
Yes. Go all the way off. So, can you like share some advice for balancing personal growth and a romantic a relationship? Because the two, like, they go hand in hand, but at the same time, you do have to work on one and work on the other, separately and individually. So how does that kind of look for you?
Yeah, totally. So I think that the personal growth that you undergo while you're single versus while you're in a relationship are really different, actually. And both stages offer growth that you can't really get in the other stage, in my opinion. Like, I did a lot of personal growth work when I was single, and I really developed my sense of self, my boundaries. I discovered who I was, what I liked, etc. But then when I got into a relationship, it felt like a whole new set of skills to learn, like a crash course in communicating in emotionally charged situations, how to have healthy conflict, navigating each other's childhood wounding, figuring out like what's yours to own versus what's theirs. And I think what I've learned is it's really important to maintain your own mental and emotional health while you're in a relationship so that you're not just emotionally dumping on your partner or making them your therapist. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. It's been really helpful in my relationship. My partner and I both do our own type of therapy work, and we've used it to set healthy boundaries. Like, sometimes my partner will be going through something and he'll kind of start to vent to me, but then because of these boundaries we set up, he'll stop himself and he'll be like, actually, you know what? I'm going to talk to my therapist about this. And I think having those boundaries with each other is so important for developing interdependence rather than codependence, because we can trust each other to take care of our own stuff, like take care of our own side of the street while also cultivating our relationship.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, sometimes what couples will experience, and even like I've experienced in my own like life, there's been times when I've been like in a relationship or a situation ship or whatever, what have you, where it's like, I'm doing the work or whatever, or like on myself. And like, cause I go to therapy as well. And, the other person, whether they're in therapy or not, like, what's that like term is like, hey, like, I'm going to worry about my journey. It's not your job to worry about, like to stay on top of me about what it is I'm doing, whatever in my wellness journey. Like, I'm doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm going to therapy. Like, that's between me and my therapist, like, It's almost like I've experienced situations where it's like, especially in my last actual relationship, where it's like, we were both in therapy, and she was almost kind of like micromanaging, if that makes sense, with like what it is I'm talking about with my therapist is like, well, you need to be like example, like I know like one of my bad qualities is like, if let's say if someone is treating me bad or whatever, I'm like, hey, can you please stop? Like I'll give them like, warnings. Hey, can you not do that? And then I'll kind of get into like a very like, I don't know, like kind of vindictive kind of like, behavior. Like, okay, well, fine, but don't ask for this next time, or don't ask me to do shit for you again, So I'll talk with my therapist, about that or whatever. But like my, past relationship, like my ex, she'd be like, I don't know, example, if I'm feeling in some type of way, you need to talk with your therapist about like, don't worry about that. I am, like.
Yeah, no, it's good not to like weaponize therapy, like I've even found myself doing that on accident with my partner sometimes. I'm just like, ugh, like talk about that in therapy. And I'm like, wait, no, that's not a good thing to say. Like just trust that your partner will do their own work. Like I think that's such a good point to bring up.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think that, at the end of the day, it's like, what's that term is like, worry about yourself. I feel like that definitely applies here, but it's like, of course it's okay to check in, but at the same time, like, let's not like be micromanaging about the other person's like, wellness journey and emotional journey, because, everyone moves and learns and grows and develops at different paces. It's like, you can't expect someone to, be on the same level as you at this point in time or whatever. So, and I think that's kind of where it gets lost with a lot of people.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point about micromanaging someone else's growth. Because you're right, we come into relationships with totally different backgrounds, like different ways of processing things. Like my partner and I both like so different. Like our childhoods were so different, and it's been a really big learning experience for me that I'm like, the way he processes and works through things and like the timeline of it, it's so different than me. And it's like, but just because it's different doesn't mean that he's wrong or anything, or that I'm right. It's just like, you kind of have to make space for someone else to do things their own way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what are like some like red flags to like watch out for, especially in the early stages of dating?
Oh man, I could like write a whole book on red flags, but I really think that the biggest red flag is inconsistency. So like their words aren't matching their actions. They don't do what they say they're going to do. They flake, or they're in and out. I think this is just the sign of an emotionally immature person or someone that doesn't have integrity. And in my opinion, that's someone that's nowhere near ready for a healthy, committed relationship. So that's one. I think rushing in is kind of a red flag. I think at best, it's a way to miss compatibility gaps, like I mentioned earlier. At worst, it's love bombing. So I definitely was someone who like, I loved having all that praise and that attention, and having someone be like, you're so amazing. Like I deleted the apps for you. And like the first few times you hear it, it feels good. You think they're telling the truth. But I learned to see that rushing in later as a red flag, because like if someone really likes you, there's no reason for them to rush. They don't need to like give you this onslaught of praise. Like that's just not a normal or healthy way of going into things. So that's another. I think being wishy-washy about their intentions, I think, is a red flag. Like if you ask someone what they're looking for and they're like, well, I don't know, I kind of just want to see where things go. Like, and you want something serious, like don't even continue. Don't think that it's like, oh, I'm going to make them fall for me. Like, no. And I touched on this one earlier, but I think that if someone can't be single, or they're very newly single, that this is a red flag. And I know it's controversial because people are always like, I'm ready to date, even though I just broke up with someone 2 months ago. And I just don't agree, because I think that if someone can't be single, or they're trying to date again right after a relationship, it means that they've had little or no time to grieve their past relationship and then individuate again and develop their sense of self outside of another person. So whenever someone is constantly in relationships, I wonder, like, what are they running from? Why are they afraid to be alone? And it's likely that they have some emotional demons that they don't want to face. And then they're just going to keep dragging these into each new relationship and wonder why nothing ever works.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big one.
Absolutely. Like I almost fell out of my seat with the whole, I'm kind of just like waiting to like see where things go. Cause like, oh my God, the amount of like guys that I've heard say that, or like out of my, women friends that have told me about situations, I'm like, oh no.
I know. And if you're like, I feel like a lot of women, or a lot of humans in general, like we love a challenge. So we hear that and we're like, oh, well, I'm going to make him fall for me because I'm amazing and I'm going to win over that unavailable guy because like that feels like the best thing ever, but it's not worth it. It's not worth the pain.
Exactly. And I think even just coming from that, like how can like individuals, come like overcome like that fear of like rejection, especially if they're dealing with, guys that are kind of coming off like that, or women that are coming off like, I'll just see where it goes. Like how does people deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, rejection is so hard to deal with. Again, like so hard not to take personally. But my hot take on this is that if you are being rejected a lot, like you are actually doing dating right, because as I mentioned earlier, 99% of people aren't for you. And so you should be your specific, unique self. And that will probably mean that you rule a lot of people out and vice versa. So I think that's just like so important to remember, that if you are out there in the dating world, like you and everyone else in the world is going to get rejected a lot, and you're going to reject a lot. And that is totally fine. And I think it helps like to think about what it feels like to be on the other side. If you think of a time that you went on a date and the person was perfectly lovely, but you just like weren't into them. Like, I don't know, the attraction wasn't there. So if you reverse that and you realize that that's what's happening in reverse most of the time, it makes it feel less like a rejection of your personal self or like everything about you, and more that it's just not a fit. Just remember that you don't need everyone to like you. You just need one person to adore the crap out of you. And the more that you get rejected, the faster that you'll get to that person. And I know a lot of people are like, there's no one out there for me, but I don't believe that. I really think that there's a lid for every pot, and sometimes it takes a really long time to find them, but I really believe that they're out there. And like, look at me. It took me 10 years of intensive dating. Like, it was my job to find the right person for me, but I did. And in hindsight, I'm super grateful for all of those rejections, because none of them were right for me. And it was actually a good thing that they happened. And at the time it sucked, but then looking back, I'm like, wow, thank goodness that happened, because it put me on this path of meeting someone super compatible. So I think that if you're someone who's been rejected a lot and you're frustrated by it and you're hurt by it, I hear you, I see you, but don't make it mean that you're not worthy of finding love.
Wow. Like that was just so beautifully put. Like the people that are listening or watching and tuning in, like I think that resonates with so many people, because, there's 8 billion people in the world. Like there's somebody out there for everybody.
Exactly.
And it's so cool that, and like, and I'm still like amazed, like at the fact, cause you had mentioned, like you're in your 30s, you don't even look a day over like 24, 25. So I'm just like, how share the fountain of youth. Like I need to know look young like you. Cause someone thought I was 45.
What? No, you said you're 31. You look your age. Yeah, I'm 34. And I like, that's another thing I didn't get to say earlier, but I think we need to just throw this notion in the trash that like dating in your 30s and beyond is like hopeless. Like I feel like maybe it's a woman thing, I'm not sure, but I feel like I hear so many women being like, I'm going to turn 30 soon. Like, should I be prepared for a wasteland? And I'm like, no, no, I think I got like more dates, better dates. Like dating in my 30s was so much better than dating in my 20s, mostly because I knew myself better. And like, I looked roughly the same, probably even better because I have like a better skincare game and I don't drink anymore. So like,
Yeah.
it's like, I just feel like your 30s are such a good time to date and to meet people. So I just want to say, like, to anyone who worries that they're getting too old, like, fuck that. You're not getting too old.
Exactly. Yes. And also go all the way the fuck off on your skincare routine. You are glowing over there.
Thank you. Yeah, I got my tinted moisturizer. I think that's helps me. Sunscreen.
Love
Wear your
it.
sunscreen. That's like the most important tip.
Right. There's the fountain of youth. That's the secret. Okay.
It's the sunscreen.
So, so like, what would you say are, I guess kind of key qualities to building a strong, healthy relationship with somebody?
Yeah, so I think really the most important quality is willingness. And what I mean by that is having the willingness to listen, to communicate, to take responsibility, to be vulnerable, and to make changes when necessary. I think that is like, if you have a willingness in a partner, that just like lays the foundation to make everything better because you're both willing to work together, to change what's needed, to hear each other out. I think that's so important. And I also think that being observant is really important, like really learning to see your partner, like deeply see who they are, understand why they do things the way they do. I think this just helps so much when it comes to conflict or difficulty because you've taken the time to observe and understand. So you're less likely to make assumptions and you're more likely to see their behavior through a lens of compassion. That's like really been huge for my partner and I, again, because we're so different. It's like observing and being like, okay, like I kind of like see who they are, how they're acting, why, like it's been really helpful. And it's sort of similar vein. I think another important component is emotional intelligence in both partners. And I do think this is something that can be built over time. So I think understanding your own emotions, your partner's emotions, and being able to effectively communicate them and work through them, it's like so key. And it's a huge reason why my partner and I work so well. Vulnerability and transparency around your wounds, your flaws, your past. I really think that this is so important. And instead of like hiding these shameful secrets or wounds, just bringing them all to the surface, like telling your partner the truth about things. I really think this will do wonders for your relationship. Like a quick example for me is I struggle with anxiety, and it's been so healing to just be open with my partner about it. And he has some difficult things that have happened in his past. And him being open about that has helped us both learn and grow together as a couple. So that's my spiel.
Love it. Like that is just so amazing. Like, especially like just with all these, all the questions and stuff like that I've had and like that the listeners like have, like, this is just such helpful information. And oh my goodness, like I can see why, your book and why like your Instagram page, like why everything that you put out resonates with so many people, because like you did the work, you're doing the work, you provide so many great real world examples that is so fucking relatable. So I just want to like thank you for sharing your knowledge. Like
Yeah, I'm so happy it's relatable. I feel like for like so many years I felt so alone in all the ways that I like struggled, and so now it's just like my mission is to help other people not feel alone and to be like, here's some practical advice. You're not crazy. Like you're normal for having these emotions. Like I'm just trying to validate single people and be like, your struggle is real. I get it.
Like at this point, I feel like we should just like rename this episode title to "Not How to Not Die Alone."
Situaseans podcast is an open platform covering dating, relationships, mental and emotional life experiences. If you are looking to advertise your brand or product or would like to sponsor the show, send an email to situaseanspod@gmail.com. That's situaseanspod@gmail.com.
We got like a little bit of a listener submission. So do you want to like help me unpack that one?
Absolutely. Let's get to it.
All right. Let's go ahead and unpack that listener submission. So this one is a screenshot of a Hinge dating app prompt that someone took a screenshot of and submitted it to the podcast. So again, to anyone that's listening, watching, submit your story to situationspodcast.com/submit. And it's anonymous. We won't know who submitted what. It's just for you to submit your story, screenshots, what have you. So this prompt says, okay, so the anonymous listener says, this prompt is a green flag. I think mutual effort should be shown to whomever you are dating. This can be shown in various different ways, especially through the 5 love languages: words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. Signed, equal effort for everyone. So just for everyone's reference, like this is a green flag that somebody noticed when they were just swiping on someone's Hinge profile. So the screenshot that they submitted, it says, the way to win me over is showing you are just as interested in me as I am in you, with the 100% emoji. Love it. I think this is Hinge. This is good. This is good. I like that. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree that it's a green flag. And I think that reciprocity is so important. And I think it's often overlooked, like, especially for women. I see a lot of women kind of doing this thing where they're like, I want to be wined and dined and I want the man to pursue me and all of that. But they sometimes maybe forget that like men need to be wanted too. Like they need to be shown interest. They want to feel like you're reciprocating your effort. And it's okay if like effort and reciprocation looks different for a man versus a woman. Like on a first date, the man's effort might be planning the date and buying her a drink, and her reciprocation might be like expressing a ton of appreciation, showing her interest, like letting him know, hey, I'm having a really good time with you. Like, thank you so much for taking me out. Like, this is a blast. Something as simple as that, I think, is often overlooked. And I'm guilty of it too, because you want to be the cool girl. You don't want to show too much of your cards because you don't want to get rejected. But I think that dating is just a better experience for everyone if people are just like honest about how they're feeling, like reciprocate, make people feel appreciated.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because, it's important to like take time getting to know each other, because I know there's some people out there that are like kind of like match energy, just to, match energy because like, yeah, they're afraid of having like their heart broken. And me as somebody who wears their heart on their sleeve, I'm guilty of sometimes, like I've done that in the past, or even like very like recently, I've gone on dates like I can't really tell what this person's vibe is, but I am going to match the energy because I am interested, but I don't want to be, I don't know, too much or be too little. So how do I kind of, find somewhere in the middle so that like, yeah, maybe we can kind of further explore and see if we're right for each other. So I don't know. It's I do agree with what you said. It's so important to like, to show that interest and, equal effort for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think if you think about it, it's like, what's the worst thing that happens if you're like appreciative and nice to someone? Like the worst thing that happens is you don't go on a date again and then you just remember, oh, I was nice to that one person that one time. It's like you're never going to regret that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's been times when it's like, like, because like I'm just like a really like, I guess, I don't know, like nice bubbly person or whatever. Like I've gone on dates where it's like, I guess like my niceness have been like taken advantage of, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Or like they'll say, oh, like you're a nice guy, but like what like list whatever reason that like they want the bad boy or something like that. And then they'll come back like months later. Hey, I really given this some thoughts. And, I'm like, nah, too late.
That I feel like that's like maturity. Like as women get older, we realize like we want the nice guy. And it's like, it took me some time to learn that too. I was like, why am I not attracted to the nice guy? And I was like, oh, that's a me problem. It's not a problem with the nice guy. He's doing it right.
Absolutely. Well, to the listener that submitted this, like, yeah, this is a really cool green flag. I'm glad that at least some guy out there is, putting in the work and, showing like, trying to present himself in the best way possible. I hope that his words are matching his actions, but just from this interaction, it sounds like, like something good came of this. So if you're listening, like, if you submitted this and you're listening to this episode right now, like, definitely send a follow up. I want to know, like, like, where are y'all at in this phase? Are y'all still seeing each other or what? Listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, can you do me a really quick favor? Can you please rate and review this podcast? Like hit that 5-star review, because, and I do read all the reviews because this helps me know how this podcast is helping others and how, this podcast is serving you, because my job as a host is to serve you this podcast the way that you would prefer it to be. You want to do a little quick lightning round of Hinge or Unhinge with me?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
All right. So this first one says, one thing I'll never do again: close the garage door on someone's head. It was honestly not super fun. 2 out of 10. Definitely wouldn't recommend. They closed
Unhinged.
Right? That's definitely unhinged. Like, I just want to know, like, what?
I know, I have a lot of follow-up questions. Like, were you doing it on purpose? Like, I don't understand.
And I just love how the submitters had said definitely wouldn't recommend. It's like how did the person who had their head dropped on, or the garage door dropped on their head, like, how did they agree to do that? Like, who initiated this?
Right? And like, did they block the sensors? Because it's like automatic, the door won't close if there's something there. So I'm like, what was this elaborate setup? Like, what is this?
And then, like, part of me is like, did they just admit to a crime? No, I'm just kidding.
I know, like a murder, a garage guillotine.
Exactly. It's like, is this person, is the victim still alive? Like, where is this person? All right. So this other one, this next one says, together we could go camping, unless, of course, asking strangers on the internet to go camping with me is what my mom was warning me to not do when they said to not talk to strangers on the internet. So inviting somebody you don't know to go camping with you far all the way out in some remote location on a first interaction.
Wait, oh my God. First. Yeah, I was going to say, like, I'm a camper, so I was going to be like hinged, but if it's like your first date, like, hell no, that's a way to get murdered.
Exactly. On the next episode of Investigation Discovery.
Right. Oh God.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's definitely unhinged. It's hinged if you all know each other and there's rapport. You all are, you guys know each other, can trust each other enough to go somewhere and hang out in the woods or whatever. But unhinged, if you never met this person and you're just like, hey, come meet me at this lodge all the way out, where no one can see us or hear us.
Right. There's no cell service either. Off the grid.
Exactly. You're getting the full off the grid experience here. I promise. It'll like this date will be to die for.
Oh God.
Oh goodness. All right, one more. So this one says, I recently discovered that I don't actually know how to date. This person doesn't know how to date, and they just discovered that, and they put that on their Hinge prompt. That's what their prompt says. I recently discovered that I don't actually know how to date. Hinged or unhinged?
I think that's an unhinged thing to put on your dating profile. Like, it's fine if that's the truth, but don't lead with that.
Right. It's like this person just kind of just opened themselves up for I don't know, just the worst experiences ever. Cause they're going to get someone that that was like, well, they don't know how to date. So I'm going to just, you know, like, I don't know. I'm going to just give them this experience, whatever, because they don't know how to date. They don't know if this is a bad experience or not ideal. Like, I'm going to just fuck around with them and like, yeah, they'll never know.
Yeah, seriously. It's a horrible idea to open yourself up to that.
Exactly. Or probably like the other way around, like the alternative could be, since they don't know how to date, they're probably just like the worst communicator, like the worst person, like they don't put in effort or whatever. So the person that they match with on the app, they're going to get the short end of the stick because this person doesn't know how to date. So
Exactly. I would never match with that person. I'm like, thanks for letting me know ahead of time. Swipe left.
Exactly. Like, nope. To the listeners, thank you for submitting that. Again, submit your stories and questions to situationspodcast.com/submit. And if you have an ick, if you're out on a date and some guy is like, you know, acting icky, or if some guy is asking for nudes or something like that, and you don't even know this guy, send your ick to situationspodcast.com/ick. Do not send a dick pic to us, okay? We don't want to see that shit.
That's an ick. Unprompted dick pics.
Exactly. That is a huge ick. I just want to say one more time, thank you so much to the listener for submitting your stories and your questions, and to those that submitted those Hinge app prompts, or the unhinged prompts, I should say. Thank you for, you know, letting you know, Lauren and I have a good time unpacking that, because that shit was unhinged as fuck. And Lauren, I want to thank you for coming on to the show, unpacking it all with the listeners. Can you please share with us, you know, how we can find your work, how we can connect with you, your book, where to get it, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so the best way to contact me or connect with me is on my Instagram. It's the same title as my book. It's at Looking for Something Serious. And my book is available everywhere. Most places books are sold, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, etc. It's called Looking for Something Serious by Lauren Josephine. And yeah, Sean, thank you for having me on. This has been a blast. I feel like time flew by, like we could keep talking forever.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel the same. Like just having those shared experiences is just going back and forth unpacking this. I feel the same. Like we can literally talk forever. So I just want to say thank you so very much for just being such a light and joy, and just dropping all of this knowledge on our listeners. And like I said, I told you we would figure out dating. We done figured it out. Like now
we did.
Yeah, we did. So yeah, there are 3 ways that you all can submit your stories. Again, situationspodcast.com/submit. The second way, call the hotline, 312-586-2664. That's how you can submit a voicemail submission. And then again, you know, you can leave an email like situationspod@gmail.com. And yeah, from there you can, you know, leave your submission. So, you know, if you're on a plane, a train, a car, bus, a boat, if you're in the 10th dimension, don't matter where you are, take Situations Podcast with you wherever you go. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the lovely Lauren here with her beautiful smile and glowing face, just dropping all this knowledge with us. And yeah, you can support the show by, you know, going to patreon.com/Situations Podcast, and you can see all the dating app screenshots and the stuff that I deal with when I go on dates. So Lauren, I give people like the really inside scoop on like my dating life on the Patreon. So it's you know, it's fun in there. It's a good time.
Oh my God, that sounds so juicy. I love a screenshot and like real things that are happening.
Oh yes. Once again, thank you so much for being here. Like this has been like literally the biggest drop of love on my heart by having you share so much knowledge with us. So thank you so very much, Lauren. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And you are now officially a friend of the podcast. You are welcome to come back whenever you want. If you got something that, like another book that you're promoting, you can hit me up and I'll be like, all right, we're going to do this like the next day. Or if you want to record this right now at midnight, I got you, Lauren. Like I got your back.
I love that. No, this has been so fun. Yeah, I feel like we could just we have encyclopedias worth of information to talk about. So I'll have to come on again for sure.
Absolutely. And with that, everyone, I will see you all back here for the next episode in a couple of weeks. Woo!